Welcome to the AfterWord.
Not from the loft, but from below the loft.
Yeah, from below the loft. From near the loft.
I don't know that we'll ever do it in the loft anymore. We're going to have to think of another annoying thing for Eric.
Well, we need to just figure out where we're going to be.
Yeah, that's true.
And then do that.
We're in flux. We're in transition. We're trying to get some new offices ready for new staff members. Ooh. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. So this is the AfterWord. Our hope is that we're able to walk through the text that we looked at on Sunday, talk a little bit more about it for the purpose of application, so that you, the listener, so that all of us would be helped to see the beauty of God's Word. So that's our hope. This is Vince, by the way. I'm joined by Betty and Jory.
Hey.
And Mike.
Mike, say something.
Mike, say it? No. Mike is our 11-week-old puppy who's sitting here with me. So I don't think he'll say anything, but we'll see. We'll see if he does. Betty's taking a picture. Maybe we'll post that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So people can know.
Anyway, so that's what we're doing. And Betty and Jory are a part of the transition that's coming. Betty is eventually heading to Japan, and Jory is eventually heading into Betty's role. So the transition is happening right in front of me, right here. So that's what we're doing. Here's the opening question. Let's get into this. This may be short and sweet, the whole thing, but here's the opening question. It's October. We're not getting into the do you like Halloween or not, or do you think should exist or not, or any of that. But what as a kid, what Halloween costume do you remember really feeling like proud about? This was the one. Do you have any that come to mind?
Yeah, immediately in my mind. I don't know how we're defining kid, so this is probably sophomore, junior year of high school.
Oh, still dressing up, still making the rounds, huh?
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I found this Elvis costume that was like, not like young Elvis, but, like older.
Fat karate Elvis?
Yes. With like these gold sunglasses. Oh, yeah. And I just went around singing Elvis songs with my best Elvis voice all day.
Can you give us a little bit of that?
It was like the... I have a blue.
Okay.
Something like
that. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But I had the glasses, and I actually kept the glasses and just began wearing them as fashion lenses for the rest of the school year that year.
This is going to get a little personal. Did you have more hair then?
Yeah. Okay. No, back in the day, I had like the long Bieber swoop type hair.
I got to see pictures.
I had this like neck crick where I would constantly be swooping my hair.
I need to see pictures. I must see pictures of that.
Yeah, they're somewhere. There's definitely some in my parents' house, but I'll try to find some.
Okay, Betty.
We said before we started recording that I'm still a kid.
You're still a kid.
So therefore, I think one of my favorite costumes was actually senior year of college. So like 2 years ago.
7 months ago.
And my roommates and I were all Rubik's Cubes. And
did you make the costume?
Yeah.
Oh.
And Nav's always had a Halloween party. So we went to the Halloween party in our Rubik's Cube costumes, and we're like moshing in the basement wearing giant cardboard boxes.
Oh.
And it was great.
Were these Rubik's Cube costumes, were you able to like twist the blocks around?
No, we weren't.
None of them were engineer students.
Yeah, none of us were.
Were you like a completed one, or were you an incomplete one?
I was a completed one, but one of my roommates like looked up a pattern for like a solvable Rubik's Cube that was incomplete, that was like close to being solved, and that's how she painted hers.
Wow.
And she was like, yeah, this was a terrible idea because it took her forever to do it. But I was a solved one.
Interesting. This brings up my answer brings up a little bit of pain in my life. I feel like a lot of my costumes were homemade costumes, but as a kid back in the way back when, those weren't the cool costumes. The cool costumes were the ones you'd go to the store and buy, and they had the plastic mask with like the cutout eyes and like mouth hole. And those were the ones I always wanted, but I never got one of those. I always had the like, homemade ones. So I was a hobo once, like a homeless man, and yeah. So
you just wore your actual clothes.
Yeah. Hey, what's that supposed to mean? Yeah. So there you go.
Sorry that
it brings
this
up.
question brought that up, Vince.
I'm gonna have to talk to a counselor now about this. All right. Well, let's jump into the text. Excuse me, Mike. Let me grab my Bible. Don't mind me. Let me give a short recap of the text, and then we'll try to just have some discussion. This one, for some reason, for me, it was hard to come up with some questions, but we'll try to get there, try to get to some discussion. So Paul, all of chapter 15 is he starts with the gospel, but it's about the resurrection and the beauty of the resurrection, the hope of the resurrection. So 35 through 49, Paul it seems to be answering some questions of the Corinthian church that they've gotten to him in some way. And their question seems to be around this idea of how is this all going to happen? You're talking about the resurrection, Paul. How is this really going to happen? What are our bodies going to be like? Because for the Corinthians, they did not believe in a bodily, physical resurrection. That was the Greek world of the day. They believed actually that the body was a trap of this life, and if we could get rid of the body in some way, that would be better. And so they were hopeful for a spiritual or soul resurrection, but not a bodily one. So this is all new to them. So they're asking questions, it seems like, and Paul's answering the question. And he talks about the first part of the passage. He talks about how there has to be death before there's life. So he gives the analogy of a seed or a kernel of wheat, and how there has to be death in the plant to get the seed so that life can come from that seed, giving the picture of, or the illustration of, death being a human body being planted, so to speak, in the ground, and then being raised to life like a plant would come out of that. So he gives those illustrations to give the idea of it, and then moves from that into talking about Adam being the first man, and how Adam was given a human body, but death was his promise. And from the first man comes the second man, who is from heaven, not from this earth, not made of dust, but from heaven, Jesus, and how as Jesus has been raised to new life, so will we. So we bear the image of both the first man from the earth and the second man from heaven. So that's the text. I really don't know where to go with questions. I'm sure there are a lot of things that probably come up with for all of us in terms of questions that we could be asking, and a lot of specifics. And I'll be honest, Paul and really the Bible doesn't give us a whole lot of insight into what this resurrected life will be like. We have some things here and there, but there aren't a lot of details so that we would be able to say, this is exactly what is going on. This is what we would hope for. So let me start just to get us warmed up. It's early Monday morning. What stereotypes, if you do have any, what stereotypes do you have of the resurrected life or heaven, or what that looks like for the human? Do you have stereotypes in your head, or this generalized? Maybe it's fake. Don't be embarrassed. We'll get it all out there. What comes to mind for you?
Zombies for me.
Just straight into zombies.
Jory's
Jory's looking to never be invited back.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Yeah, if it's the movies I grew up watching, like I Am Legend, those classic movies, or if it's Halloween. But that's just, I hear resurrection and I think not a fully restored body, but this half mutilated, injury prone body that is creepy,
is coming to eat people.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Paul doesn't mention those, so we'll. Betty, how about you?
Well, I've thought a lot about like the last Narnia book, the last battle, like when everyone dies basically, and they're in like I don't remember what it was, if it had a name in that book. I've only read it once, but
They were going further up and further in.
Yep. When they like run really fast and they aren't tired. But all this talk about zombies. Okay, so I stand on that answer, but I feel like
all this talk
about
as
zombies.
If we've spent 40 minutes talking about zombies.
It makes me think of like people just exiting the grave, and so I think of like mummies.
Sure.
Oh,
like
mummy.
with the bandages, maybe not like embalmed, but
So you're going back to like Scooby Doo. Like
yep.
Yeah. For some reason, my stereotypical view is this like holographic angel-like figure coming up out of the ground and ascending, and just continuing to go up. I think of like Jesus looking up into the, or the disciples looking up into the air as Jesus ascends. That sort of view, but that's how the resurrection happens, as we all just start floating up. So I don't know that I've thought much about what our bodies would look like, because for some reason it's not physical bodies. It's like this see-through entity that's raising. So that comes to mind. And when you mention zombies, I also think about Beetlejuice. I don't know if you maybe are too young to have seen it.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah. It was maybe VHS, Betty. We'll talk about that some other time. In Beetlejuice, there's this waiting room scene where there's a bunch of dead people. You can tell that they've been through some really rough things, and you see all the marks in their bodies from what they've gone through. So that's another view of some reason they're just okay. Hey, Mike. Just we see this picture of all these mutilated bodies, and still somehow alive.
When you picture the like see-through, are they like a certain color?
I think we're all wearing white flowing robes. So no body is really just these white angelic figures floating up. I don't know why that sticks in my head, but that's the stereotype. All right, let's move away from stereotypes and get into the text. Paul mentions in the very beginning of this text, he mentions this death to life, death before life kind of illustration, where he gives the plant being the seed being planted and raised. I'm going to ask a really general question. How does that hit this idea that there must be death before life?
Yeah. I think growing up, that was a confusing concept, but I have memories in college where I began to see, I think, the beauty of it, and some context there. Like my dad, he actually passed away when I was in middle school. Mm-hmm. And so I think because of that, I was thinking about death a lot, and I still think about death a lot. But I remember in, 6 years after that, I'm going to college, and even being in my classes and learning about, like our biology, and how in order for muscles to grow, like muscles have to die and get broke down in order to grow, or trees. There's like fires out in, the, whatever it's called, like west of Fort Collins, that green area. I forget what is it called anyway, but
the green area west of Fort
all
Collins.
The trees. When I was in college, there was a huge forest fire just west of Fort Collins, and I was learning about the trees, where in order for more trees to grow, a fire is actually necessary. So I feel like I was like learning these examples in creation of death is like actually brings about the beauty of new life, which is kind of what Paul gets about with the seed examples.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything come to mind for you, Betty?
I think it was just generally what we think.
Yeah, just general. Like how does that hit the death to life idea that Paul is bringing about, that there's death before life? There must be.
I don't know if like that generally has, I've realized I don't know if I've thought a lot about death generally. And I think some of that might be like maybe not wanting to think about like hard pieces of that, like with my own family, like knowing none of them are like walking with the Lord, except for immediate family. So I think death isn't something I've generally thought a lot about, and like for us as Christians, like the hope that comes with that after. But
yeah,
I'm kind of just rambling.
No,
I
I hear you. I think
thoughts.
I think it's in hypothetical conversations, it's, you know, we can see the beauty in it. I think if it stays there, that feels okay to talk about, you know, and talk about all these analogies of the trees burning and all of that. But when it gets to reality and you begin to experience the death of a loved one, or even your own body failing in ways that are pretty significant, then it gets to the reality. It's not hypothetical anymore. And so you really have to, that's where this comes to a place of really having to sort through what do I believe about this and how do I see the beauty. So let's go there. This death before life concept, and not just concept, it's a reality that Paul talks about. How does that change the way we view things like evangelism, talking about the good news of the gospel? Hey, just a second. I'm gonna record this. Oh, no, he's not doing it. Mike was snoring. All right. But he stopped as soon as all right. This is a bad idea to bring a puppy to this thing. We're talking about death, Mike. Get with it. So how does the death before life, or does it? How has it helped, hindered, impacted the way in which you talk through the gospel? You all have both been on campus and in campus ministry settings. That's a big part of that. Has that entered into conversations?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I think students that I have talked to at CSU, like non-believing students, are very aware of the broken reality of the world, very aware of death and sorrow. That's not something that they are ignorant of. Mm-hmm. I think it feels very real to them. And I think the idea of, like, I don't know, it's not like you have to convince them of the death. It's already there, but it's the hope that comes in evangelism that actually feels really like there's a longing for something there's a longing for restoration. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think maybe less in how it impacts what I say. It just makes me see the necessity of just sharing the gospel with others, because we have the promise of death to life, but a lot of people it's just death and ends there. And so how does that, I think more of like, how does that impact my desire to share the gospel with others and bring like the promise of hope and restoration to other people that are not living in that, because where the lives that are being lived now like do lead to death without Christ. And so I think it kind of helps, I don't know, like fuel like the urgency to bring the gospel to others.
Yeah, I can imagine too the last 3 or 4 weeks of events that have happened, and anytime there's a tragic event, it spikes in the conversations. I would imagine the conversations that happen around death and what occurs because of that. For us as a family, I don't know that we did I shouldn't say that. We did not do a great job of talking about death with our boys as they were growing up. I don't know. Does anybody do a great job of talking? I don't know if that comes up a lot. In childhood, do we talk about these things a lot? We and as a family, we didn't really experience a lot. We didn't have, my grandparents had passed before our boys were in an age where, so we just didn't talk about those things a lot until Ezra got sick. And even in that, I think out of a desire to continue to hold out hope that God would heal Ezra. We didn't talk a lot about death even in that. But now we talk about it with some frequency, and the hope that we have because of what Christ has done. We talk about it quite a bit with our boys, and so even on Sunday, this conversation, on Sunday at our house, we talked a good chunk about this, about what does this mean and how does this bring us hope. And so I think that the hypothetical conversations can sometimes be hard because they're easy to have and we just move on. But getting to the real meat of, no, this happens and we've experienced it. It puts some, I was going to say flesh on the bones, but maybe that's not what I should say, of the conversation. So, have you experienced conversations with people where talking about death before life has been a help in a conversation that moves toward a fruitful gospel conversation? Or does that shut things down? Do people not want to talk about it? Jory, you said students are talking or at least understanding the conversation of death quite a bit. Does that conversation shut it down? Does it get awkward? Or are people open to talking about it?
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, I think death is one of those things that a lot of, and I guess we're talking experience here at campus ministry, SCSU. From my experience with students, it's a thing that students are thinking about, but aren't necessarily talking about with other people. So I think kind of just calling it out is helpful, to talk about something that people, it's on their mind, but nobody is actually talking about it. So actually being able to just talk about it can be, I think, freeing in a way.
What, I'm putting you on the spot here. I'm going off script. We didn't plan any of this. Why are students thinking about it? Is there something? Yeah. Why is that a topic that's they're thinking about?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if this is true of every generation, but I think some unique realities about the current generation of college students is there's always been some sort of war going on. Sure. Like our country has always been involved in some sort of war their entire life. And we also grew up in a connected age where we have access to the internet. Sure. So even if we're not in a war, there's some war going on and we have awareness of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Through social media, internet. So there's just this, big reality. And plus COVID was a huge, I think students today, I think I met somebody the other day who was like an 8th grader during COVID. And now they're in college. And so, there's, that's a huge reality. In a really formative time, they were very aware of.
Yeah, that's all that was on the news. How many people had died from COVID. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's fascinating to me, or what's really helpful for me in this conversation about death before life, is it must, and I think this is what Paul's getting at and why he brings up Adam, it must take us back to the promise from the garden that you may eat from any tree except for one tree, and if you do eat, you will surely die. So it's a promise from God that death is coming. And it's the kindness of God that he doesn't leave it at death, that there's also a promise that serpent will be crushed by the heel of the one who's coming. So in that way, as challenging as death is to talk about, it does really put us in a place of being able to talk about the realities of the promise of death that's coming, and what that means, and why there's hope that comes after that. So, okay, Mike is. This was a bad idea.
To get comfortable.
Yeah. Let me shift gears a little bit. Still on the same topic. How does this death before life and then life after death, new life after death, how does it, or how should it? So maybe it doesn't yet, but how should it be shaping our view of disappointment or the reality of pain currently?
This is a half-baked thought.
All of these thoughts are.
I know.
That should be the disclaimer at the beginning of the podcast.
I was saying maybe the podcast could be called Half-Baked. But
I think that may
probably
get
not.
more hits.
Yeah.
It may get more listens.
Yeah, if we want to be hip and cool.
Yeah, that's right.
You know.
That's right. That's me.
No, if wait, so the question was, how does the reality of death before life and new life after death affect how we experience sorrow and grief?
Yeah. And even just disappointments. I mean, we have disappointments in, like I ran or tried to run this ultra marathon and had to drop out about halfway through. It was a disappointment, but it's a reality of my failing body.
Yeah.
How should go ahead, preach to me here. How should my perspective of that moment be shaped by the reality of it?
Yeah. I don't know.
You don't have to answer that question.
I don't know. I mean, something that this text reminds me of is the idea of, I think the importance of like a holy longing. Like, I think we, especially in our society, our culture, we don't like grieving. We don't like sitting in hard feelings of sadness or feelings of anger. We want to move toward happiness. But I think there is something like in the disappointment, in the sadness, there's something healthy about actually sitting in the sadness and even asking yourself, like, what sort of does this sadness, what does this point me to? What might God be sort of directing my heart to in my sadness, and allowing it to create a longing, allowing it to create this, like, almost this thirst or this aching for water, for food, for healing.
Yeah.
And I think there's something really healthy and good about that moves us away from fear or grumbling, but moves us toward like hope.
That's good. I think that's something that I like learning. I went to something last year or recently, I don't know when it was, that was talking about like lamenting and learning to just lament the realities of this life with the hope and with the promise that this isn't all that there is, and this isn't how it is meant to be. And I think that was a really big perspective shift, to be told that this is something we see throughout scripture, that there is lamenting, and it's lamenting that there is brokenness in this world that isn't meant to be here, but that's the reality we live in now, and we can sit in hope for what is to come. And I think also, to answer this question, I think it's easy for disappointment and hurt to become the ultimate thing too, and to be consumed by those, like, rather than learning how to hold it openly before the Lord. I think it just becomes an all-consuming thing, and that this is all there is. And I think we just need to, I think avoiding conversations about death before life and really like what new life brings causes us to hold on to those things a little bit more. So I think it just helps create hope in what is to come. Like when I read that Narnia book, I think that was like a huge shift for me of like, oh, like there is something so beautiful that is to come. And this is just like a fictional
right.
like display of that, but like what is like going to be true for us, like when we are with the Lord and like in like its fullness. And so I don't know, I'm kind of another half-baked idea, but just
that's good.
that it helps us see that these like aren't all that we need to like be dwelling in and sitting in.
Yeah, I think we do try to move on, and I don't know how much of that's cultural, how much of it is generational, but we try to move away from hard things quickly, and we because of that, we may miss out on some of the beauty of feeling the depths of grief and the depths of brokenness over the reality of this failing life, this this life that is on a path toward decay, because of the promise of death because of sin. And we miss out on that. And I'm not saying, so let's spend all of our time in that, like you were saying, Betty, but there are moments where it's helpful, it's necessary, it's important. It's a part of I think about our move toward Easter. Good Friday is a helpful part of that celebration of Easter, because without considering the death that Jesus had, the beauty of the resurrection wouldn't be as beautiful. And that's all of life. And so we have to have moments where we are considering the horrific nature of humanity and what we are moving towards, so that the beauty of it is that much more beautiful. Now, that's amazing for those who are in Christ. For those who are not, the grief is real. I talked to somebody yesterday who really had a hard time with this text and just hearing more about it as we walk through it, because they have several family members who are not believers. And that's a painful reality, to know that this is beautiful for those who are in Christ and really devastating for those who are not. And we have to come to grips with that as well.
Vince, if I could ask you a question, or something that my wife and I actually really appreciate about your sermon, was how you really focus on the idea of like, we, in this new state, I don't know if it was what the word is, if we're, I don't know if it's like we're united to Christ, but there is this sense of like, we get this intimacy with Jesus in our resurrection bodies. And that seems like Paul's focus is on our like intimacy with Christ. Could you like elaborate a little bit more on that?
Well, and that's the reason I went to the passage in Revelation 21 at the end, because I think we can often read passages like 1 Corinthians 15 and get really excited about not having that bum knee anymore, or not having chronic headaches or whatever, and get really excited about that. And I think sometimes you hear people, and often it's our older, wiser generation who long to be with Jesus. And I often hear those kinds of comments, which I love. I really appreciate it. It's really helped me. But I hear those comments based on some hard experience that they're having. Well, I'm going through this, but come Lord Jesus, that sort of thing. And that's beautiful. But when our focus remains, I won't have to experience this kind of pain anymore, I think we're missing the point. And the point is, and this is what John gets at in Revelation 21, the point is we get unhindered access to Jesus. There won't be the nagging, headache, or the knee that's hurting, or the chronic this or that, or the grief that comes from the loss of a loved one. Those things will all be gone. Tears will be wiped away, and our nearness to Jesus will be unhindered. There won't be any hurdles to that. So that's my caution and encouragement to all of us, to myself included, when I think about the beauty of the resurrection. It's not the beauty of the resurrection so that we can, skate through eternity, in some beautiful life. It's the beauty of the resurrection so that our nearness to Jesus is all we focus on.
Which I think is also really great to think about in the context of the previous chapters that we've been in, like with the different gifts that are also meant to reveal more of Christ to us, that those things are also going to be passing away. And those things are going, like, just a taste of what fullness with Jesus will be. And so
that's really helpful,
I
Betty.
think that's cool to see like how it's coming into where we are right now.
That's really helpful. I remember talking about that in chapter 13, where he talks about all those things will pass away, and pointing forward to this day, right? To the day when Jesus returns. It's really helpful to think about that even the gifts that God graciously gives us gives to the church for the building up of the church so that we would see more of Jesus, even those things will not be needed because we'll be in the presence of Christ. That's really helpful. We may have just answered our last question, but I'll ask it anyway. What from this text increases our affections for our good God? That is it for me. I mean, that answer for me is that just the unhindered access to Jesus. I mean, I love the idea of the beauty that comes from death that we experience. I think it's a theme we see throughout the Bible, so I really do appreciate that theme. So much of my life has been sort of, I think about it a lot. Just artistically, I think about that a lot, that there's death and life comes from that death. So I love that imagery. But as I think about what we're looking at in chapter 15, the idea that all of that is so that we can have unhindered access to Jesus is beautiful.
Yeah, I would say pretty much the same thing. And just thinking like the restoration of our bodies also like yields unhindered worship.
Yeah, I think for me, it grows my faith. I think, I think of the movie Inside Out and the little emotions at the dashboard. And I think the primary emotion that's kind of driving the ship in my mind is fear. I often relate to that character. And even in my story, there is just a fear of like, I've never broken a bone. I've never gotten in a huge accident because I'm just fearful of doing things that's going to hurt me. I don't want to get hurt, or, even in high school, a fear of, asking someone out or different things like that. I've just been a fear-driven person, but I think the hope of life after death and the reality of like, yeah, there is death, but the death has to happen before new life, I think gives me faith to be able to face hard things, to be able to face disappointment and to actually lean in to the disappointment because there's hope. And I think it raises my affections for, one, God's sovereignty, God's power over everything, but also his goodness.
Yeah, that's good.
And because he's sovereign, because he's good, I can have faith in him that frees me from my tendency to fear.
That's good. All right. Thank you all. We're finishing up chapter 15 this next week. So just a few verses to end out 15, and then another week in chapter 16, I think. And then that's it.
Wow.
Then I don't know what we'll do. Maybe another book of the Bible or something.
Yeah. What do you think, Mike?
Mike doesn't care. All right. That's it. Thank you all. Bye.